Hi, I guess we're live. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is Carmina. We had some small technical difficulties, so we're about like 20-25 minutes late. And for that, of course, I apologize. But today we have a surprise guest, so I guess that will sweeten your waiting time a bit. We have with us Vedic astrologer Levi Cosijn. Welcome back, Levi.
Hi, Carmina. How are you? It's good to be here.
Good. It's good
We
to
made
have
it.
you. Yes.
Thanks.
So Levi and I co-wrote a book on the print on astrology explained, where we go through the basic principles that are mentioned in ancient Sanskrit classical texts, and we present them in a more holistic way, so that even a person who is not very advanced in their knowledge can understand, and even a person who is coming from a western astrology background can get familiarized with these principles. And I think that this book is really useful even for somebody who has an idea of Vedic astrology but just wants to refresh their knowledge or maybe find out some new perspectives. So if you want to pre-order this book, I'm gonna post a link after this live stream, and you will get it the PDF format next week, and we'll let you know if when we are going to publish it as a hard copy as well. Yes,
Absolutely.
wonderful.
hmm
So today we thought, actually, I thought that I was gonna do a Q&A session. I already received some questions, and we're gonna see if we get some questions live as well. And what's happening in the sky right now, Levi? Anything retrograde? Do you know?
I'm not really. I know Saturn is direct, but
Mm-hmm.
I would have to. Can you pull up a chart or something? Can you share screen a chart?
Oh, okay. So we
I
have
haven't really
some.
looked at the transits today, but we
Okay,
could.
so we have Sandeep Mishra. Hello, we have Resonant Yogi. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Andrea as well. Thank you. Andrea is congratulating us on the book. Um,
Thanks, Andrea.
so, okay, before I pull up the chart with today's transits, last time when I announced that we would do this, live Q&A, I already received a question. So the question is, let's see. My Ketu is in Virgo in the first house, and its Lord Mercury is with Rahu in the seventh. So, any planet with Rahu is underdeveloped. So, does it mean that Ketu is also underdeveloped if its Lord is with Rahu? That is the question that I had. So, I'm just gonna say something. I'm just gonna say something about it, my perspective, and Levi, you can also share your perspective if you want. I'm just gonna say K2 can never be underdeveloped because it's where we invested our time in previous existences. So, you know, if Rahu's Lord is with K2, definitely not K2 is underdeveloped, but we can say that you have to, the key is also in, studying Rahu. So in order to develop that K2, you also have to go back to Rahu again. And in this case, it's, let's see,
So it
Ketu
would.
in Virgo in the first house, and this Lord Mercury with Rahu in the seventh. So this first seventh axis of self and relationships, and Virgo and Pisces, right?
Yeah. So Jupiter is with K2. Yes.
No. Ketu is in Virgo in the first house, and its Lord Mercury, Ketu's Lord Mercury, is
Oh.
with Rahu in the seventh.
Oh, so Mercury is with Rahu in Pisces.
Yes, and Ketu is on the ascendant in Virgo.
hmm
Yes, so I would definitely, have to say that Ketu in Virgo Virgo, a person who is very invested in just 1 second. Levi, can you take over for a second?
Sure. So it's Ketu in Virgo is with and Rahu is with Mercury. Just have because I can't really have a visual here. Is with Mercury. So it would indicate that there is already a connection from previous times, right, with Rahu's placement. I mean, you can look at it always. A planet with Rahu or Ketu is always something that is under development. Especially Rahu is under development, but Ketu is also where we suppress energy, life energy. So in that regard, it's always going to play an important role. It's going to be more challenging. Yes. So Carmina, can you still hear me? Because I can't.
Yes, I can hear you. I can. I wonder what happened here. I think we lost Levi. Yeah, well, today we don't have Mercury retrograde, but it seems that we have some technical issues. Just let me resend the invitation to him. Yeah, so until he gets back, if you have other questions, you can just post them there. Okay, so I'm seeing here, I would like to know about the timing of getting a suitable job. How do we check? Also, how do we see permanent settlement abroad? Sandeep, the timing of getting a suitable job. Well, you have to check your career factors, and you have to see the planets that are involved with your, the 10th house, your Atmakaraka, planets with your Atmakaraka, with the 10th house lord. So these are the career factors, and then you have to check in the dashas if these planets have an agenda. In the dasha that you are running, you can check it in Vimshodri dasha, and also you can check in the Rashi dashas in Charana Vamsha, which shows the life's purpose in general. So yeah, it's difficult to say it so abstractly. Like, I would have to have the chart in front of me, but that's how I would check it. I would see the career factors, and I would see if the current time period has an agenda. And how do we see permanent settlement abroad? Well, you have to see the foreign factors connected to your self factors. You have to see, for instance, the 12th lord, because the 12th house is connected to foreign places. You have to see Rahu, because Rahu is also connected to foreign places, or the Rashi of Cancer, which is also connected to foreign places. So, 1 second. Okay, so Luis. Oh, sure, Luis, you're welcome. Okay, Scott. Hi, Carmina. In the Samsha, I have Sun in the first house, who is third lord in Jupiter. Third house, who is 10th lord. Sun is with Mercury. Ah. Okay, so third lord. Among your own business. Usually the yoga for, one doing their own business would have to have, there is a yoga, the 6th and the 5th and the 6th lord together, well disposed, but I don't think, I mean, I would have to see the whole chart. That doesn't really say too much if it's the third house with the 10th house for me.
I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, hi, welcome back, Levi. So, yeah, can you resume what you were explaining about Rahu and Ketu? In the meantime, I just answered other questions that were here.
Yes, I think, well, I think the most important thing is Rahu and Ketu's placement according to the sign and house. And that
Mm-hmm.
if you have Ketu's Lord
Mm-hmm.
connecting to Rahu, well, that's going to be an extra push, we could say. I think it's more kind of deepening the connection. It's the same. The reverse is also possible. If the Lord of Rahu is with Ketu, for example, then it would show that someone has already worked on these Rahu issues. That's one way of looking at it. And so vice versa. Okay, so I think it would propel the person into exploring a little deeper, but there would be, especially Rahu, whatever is conjunct Rahu is always something that needs further development. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it just emphasizes whatever that planet represents as a natural indicator, and also as a word, whatever it represents for you. It would emphasize deepening that connection. But I
Mm-hmm.
think Rahu's Lord with Ketu would show that the person already has some experience in respect to especially Rahu field. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other way around, you can say that it's required. What is required is more emphasis on developing that specific planet, which is conjuncting Ketu, and no, Rahu in this case. Yes. Yeah, and I think whatever Rahu is influencing always has confusing. There's some confusion in respect to that area, whatever that planet represents. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an important point to focus on and to try to get your head around. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I have Scott. I have explored Scott's question while you were missing in
Mm-hmm.
action. And then he added that, okay, he said, my sun is at Makaraka. In the Samsha, I have sun in the first house, who is third lord, in Jupiter in the third house, who is 10th lord. Sun is with Mercury in 10th house of natal chart. Does this mean I should do my own business? Well, if the 10th house is so emphasized, and the sun is in the 10th house, the sun is also a natural self factor in Jurat Makaraka, so it's like definitely a leadership thing. So, I mean, just by seeing this little piece of the puzzle, I would say yes. It's a good start towards being self-employed. But I would have to see also the other, the chart in front of me. I have
There's
another.
one. There's one
Yes,
yoga. Remember when the
the
fifth
fifth
and the
and the
sixth.
sixth lord.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when the fifth and the sixth lord are conjunct,
Mhm.
it's a conchal yoga.
Yes,
This is
conjunct.
yes, this is favorable for self-employment. But there's of course a third
Other
house aspects and this
combinations.
kind of thing too.
Hmm.
Third house is also
Because
very important.
yeah, the third house is always courage, so, and also competitiveness, but courage to undertake your thing. So if you have a good third house,
Yes, and it's also
especially.
competitive.
Mhm.
The third is
Yes,
commerce, and the seventh is trade. So commerce has
yes.
more that competitive. So self-employment definitely also the third. I would look at it, and other
Mm-hmm.
factors as well. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I have another question from Sandeep. Sandeep is full of questions today, which is very interesting. I mean, good for you, Sandeep, because I saw you were waiting for this broadcast. So, having a Pisces Swamsha is considered auspicious, but what if Atma Karaka is Mercury, which is debilitated in Pisces? Well, first, I'm gonna say that Mercury, I mean, is not debilitated in all the sign of Pisces, right? So it's just debilitated in the first 10 degrees, I think. But for Gemini
15.
techniques, we don't consider the dignity. Gemini only says if you have your Swamsha in Pisces, liberation. So you are geared towards liberation, but also you have to see what planets are conjunct and aspecting this Swamsha in Pisces, because if you have all malefics, you may tend to take, distractions as liberation and not the actual liberation. So you might, find escapism and all this shadow of the Piscean realm as liberation. So it doesn't matter, for instance, I have Mercury in Pisces in the D60, but Gemini never says that if this is debilitated, it's bad. The Swamsha is just taken as, the natural self, some natural challenge that one has in pursuing their natural inclination. For Pisces, the challenge is to, to see what the real liberation is, and not just distraction and escapism. I guess that's the challenge for Pisces Swamsha. So I wouldn't say if you have your Atmakaraka Mercury in Pisces that it's inauspicious. It's just you also have to see what planets are influencing, and always you have to, make sure you're paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, and also the planets, if there's malefics aspecting, it shows that the path can be a little tougher. It doesn't mean that you have less promise or anything. Benefics show like a gentle path, an ease with things in respect to the Swamsha, your path, right? The Atmakaraka, the soul planet in the Navamsha. So definitely has to do with keeping focused on the path of Dharma and responsibility, which is Navamsha stuff. So yeah, I think if malefics from good dignity aspect, it's always better, because if you look at what what malefic planets from their own sign give or take, it depends a lot on dignity, right? And how much bad they give, how much good they can give.
Yes, we prefer being expert from Saturn in Libra than Saturn in Aries.
Yeah, but you want benefics aspecting or gentle planets aspecting, ideally. Yes.
I have another question here. It's a very broad question, so we'll see how we tackle it. Do you have any general advice for reading a birth chart for someone? I'm in a strange place where I kind of know what the chart means by looking at it, but I can't really put it into words. Thanks. Yeah, I guess this is the, I think every astrologer has this in the beginning where they know it, but they just, it takes practice to put it into words. I would start with the Ascendant because that's the path of the body. Yeah, I would start, okay, this is your path. If you have, like Levi was saying, if more cruel planets are aspecting like Saturn, Mars, this person will be of a tougher path. If gentle planets are, this person will receive, it will be more comfortable. So we can just start with that, and then also you can look at the nodes, like what the south node is, what sign, what house, what is the past life experience, what is the comfort zone of the person, and then Rahu, the north node, what is the person trying to develop. So you can look at these axes, like you can look at the ascendant, you can look at the south node, north node, and then just go through the houses and see what houses are emphasized. You can also see if there's a majority of, fire signs or earth signs, to see what the person is more, doing more of what.
Yeah, and also I think it's important to, when you look at the houses, like ascendant for the second house, third house, you're looking at concrete aspects in a person's life, okay, the concrete areas in life. But the signs are always deeper, and always the houses are always gateways to, or doors to, the sign, which is always deeper. So if you focus, sometimes it's good if you don't have a lot of time, or people just asking questions, and you want to really go into it a little deeper to examine the sign, what the signs really represent. Like Aquarius, for example, is the humanitarian, what it really means. So if you have your sun in Aquarius, for example, there's so much meaning you can derive from that, because the sign is so reaches so deep, and so I would definitely look at, you know, the sun and moon as the two self planets, Atmakaraka, you know, ascendant, all these self factors. Where are they situated, and what is it telling? So you always look for confluence, or when certain things point in the same direction. So
Yes.
always just don't, look for patterns, and look at from different angles. That's why it's very good to know a lot of techniques, and to know how to look at specific things from different angles, because then at a certain point you see things you know, overflowing or congruing, or how do you put that? So, and that would give you intuitive insight. So, you know, the chart, whatever information needs to come out, just trust it, and it would jump out, and you would be accurate, you know. And it's always dependent on the moment, you know. Some people need certain things, hear certain things. Often it's not dependent on techniques or anything. Sometimes you just say something, and after the reading you say, why did I say that? I mean, that didn't really make sense. So, but I think it's good to know the self planets, sun, moon, Atmakaraka, ascendant, lord, what these planets are doing. I'm looking for a story, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely. Andrea is asking, can having two exalted planets opposite each other be difficult? Let's say you have Sun exalted in Aries and Saturn exalted in Libra. Well, in this example that you gave, Andrea, these two planets are actually enemies, and they're both exalted, so they have different agendas. So, you know, the person doesn't know whether to be a prince or a pauper because the Sun is, you know, the king. It's all about steadfastness, but Saturn is more, he doesn't like the spotlight. He wants to do its duties in the background. So it's very difficult for this person because there's always this power play within them, this ego play with both Sun and Saturn very strong. I think this is a lot of people from 1981 who were born in April, for instance, because then the Sun was in Libra and the Saturn was in Libra and the Sun was exalted. So it doesn't make them bad people, of course, but they have a lot of inner struggle of deciding what's more important.
Yeah, also I think when you have two exalted planets, they're always going to give something exalted, that's for sure. But here we're talking about Lagitaria Vasas, or, you know, planetary friendship. And so Saturn and Sun, of course, are enemies, and so that's going to play out within the consciousness, of course, but there is going to be always something exalted about it. Now you also see in several charts of people with a lot of with great charts, like good dignities, that they can have a really tough time, right? Because all these planets are so strong. They're always they represent, you know, a specific part of that consciousness within, you know, within the person, and it's different areas. So sometimes it's difficult to choose also. So sometimes if you have planets in bad dignity, you have one planet doing really well, it can show the person what direction to you know, where to go. You know, it can be, of course, good dignity planets give good results as well, but you have to look at the whole chart and see how these planets influence each other, most importantly, and see the avasas, Lagitaria avasas, in respect to how fulfilled that person can be. But definitely the exalted planets can give something, will give exalted things as well. But yeah, their strength will be, you know, dependent upon how they influence each other, of course. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Levi, for elaborating on that. Now let's see what other questions we have here. There's some interesting questions about Mars. Okay. Considering Mars is enemy of Mercury, so for Gemini ascendant, will Mars do good in the sixth house or do more bad in the sixth?
Mars is not an inimical towards Mercury. It's Mercury towards Mars.
Yes, Mars is neutral towards Mercury, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here, let's see what else we have.
But if it's conjuncting Mercury, it's always, you know, it's called impaired. The Avasta, Diptali Avasta is impaired. It's always going to create some, you know, Mars is of course a cruel planet, so it's going to give some attention for sure. But you know, if they're conjunct, Mercury will definitely harm Mars a lot more than Mars will harm Mercury.
I have an interesting question from Eniola. Hi Eniola, I know your name from the Kala group. How does one interpret the outer planets aspecting the Swamsha? That's a very interesting question. Like, because I mean, especially Levi, but I also look at the outer planets, but Levi really has looks at, you know, the transits and what the outer planets are doing. So since the Swamsha is the soul planet, if you see that an outer planet is within, let's say, 3 degrees of your soul planet, there will definitely be an influence. And you have to see what kind of influence, what kind of Tajika derived or Tajika or planetary aspect, as Western astrology calls it. If it's a more smooth aspect, if it's like a trine, there will be a more, you know, steady interchange, a more harmonious, yeah. But if it's a square, there will be more tense breakthroughs. But anytime the outer planets influence self factors, I guess it's they bring about a deeper change faster. So even if it's a tense aspect or a smooth aspect, I would say it's important, and ultimately it's for your soul evolution. So
yeah, I think you can extrapolate it to all the charakarakas, you know. It's very interesting to look at it from that. It's a good technique, actually. I mean, it's a very nice way to look at it is to look at the Atmakaraka, the aspects of our planets, and especially because they are transformational breakthrough planets. So if Saturn is your Atmakaraka and you have the trine of Uranus going on, which is currently happening, then there's a freeing going on in respect to your identity, in respect to your soul's path, and so on. So it is the Atmakaraka, right? The soul planet. Also Saturn as a natural indicator, of course, and then as a ruler of you know, a sign and a houses in your as a house or house cusp in your horoscope. So, but yeah, I think it's really interesting to take the charakarakas into consideration. Like if the Pitrukaraka, the planet with the 5th highest degree, excluding the nodes, you know, and the outer planets, and is influenced by the outer planets, then definitely in respect to the father, there could be that influence. You know, the father could experience these influences for sure, and that works really well as well. Yeah. Yes.
yes. Hi Marian. Hi Rafael Perez. Rafael, thank you for purchasing our book. We'll send it to you next week. Andrea says, thank you. Sometimes we desire planets in good dignity, but when I have looked at charts of very successful people, sometimes they have planets low in Shatbala and in difficult situations. Yes, because, you know, when we calculate the points for the important yogas, the yogas that make one really successful and famous, which are the Kendrakona Raj yogas, you take into account more than just the Shadbala. So you take several factors into account, and first and foremost, you have to see whether that planet is beneficial for that ascendant or not. So if we have like a planet who has just a tiny bit of good, but it's in the right, the person is in the right dasha, the right bhukti, and that planet is doing some yoga, it will still give, even if, you know, the planet, I mean, you wouldn't think just by looking at the dignity that planet would give something. For instance, if you have a debilitated Venus on the ascendant as a Virgo or Gemini, Venus is beneficial for Virgo and Gemini ascendant, so it will still give if it has other factors, if it has Chesta, if it has, other things. So don't just dismiss a planet if it's in not so good dignity, apparently, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's also the yogas. Like if you look at success, you have to look at the whole thing. Well, the Parashara angle of astrology. Look at the Raja yogas there. There's so many yogas to consider. There's also Viparit yogas, which means reversed, right? Which are very
Yes.
powerful, especially when they're unblemished. There's all these named yogas, which are very important. And you
The
have to look at
Jaimini
the,
yogas.
and that, yeah, and then you have the whole Jaimini thing, which is what is it, 5-6 ways of determining strength in a horoscope. And and if all these things pile up, you'll see that in really extremely successful people, or like stars, or presidents, they have to have these things lining up, but not everybody is born to fulfill or to have that role in society, to really be being put out there on the
Limelight.
yes, of the collective. So
Exactly. Oh, we have a question from Raphael. Do signs rule body parts or do houses rule them? It is said that zodiac signs are the unconscious lips of Vishnu and houses are our view of heavens. Yes, well, we actually covered this question in our book. The signs do not rule anything since they are unconscious, but they do correspond to the body parts. For instance, Aries is the head, the top of the head, Taurus is the face and the neck, Gemini is this part and the arms. And then you can extrapolate this meaning to the houses as well, because the original first house is Aries, the original second house is Taurus. So you can also associate houses to body parts. For instance, I once, when I was, I don't know, I was visiting some friends of friends of friends, and somebody came to visit, and this person had a red beard, and I said, okay, you must have Mars in the second house or in Taurus, and he did, because Mars makes things red and Taurus is the face. So I think it's really an interesting technique, not just as as a trick from parlor beauty parlor type astrology, but everything connects to everything because we look at it holistically. So if you know that this planet has this facial feature that is determined by some planet, then you also know some other characteristics about them because you know how that planet feels in that sign and everything. So yes.
definitely. Yeah, I think the previous question of Andrea about the dignities and also some horoscope, you see Shadbala low, especially in saints or spiritual people. They could have like a super weak sun, for example, like in Paramahansa Yogananda's horoscope, the sun is super weak, or Saturn is super weak, one of the two. So I think it's with astrology, most of the things we don't really know. We can, if you study the techniques, and especially laid out by some people like Ernst Wilhelm, Ken Rao, they have invested a lot of time in actually developing a systematic approach to astrology. Then you can really find that these things work, all these techniques work. But if you would have to predict something like that, like who is the next person to become like super famous, then you have to take into consideration that there's a lot of things that we don't know about astrology and astrological techniques, and a lot of research needs to be done. So, yeah, I think that's good to keep into consideration, is that there's a lot of things that we don't know, but there's a lot of things that we do know. So.
Another question from Scott. He's really asking about the Dasamsha. But Scott, I just have to say that I'm using a different calculation for Dasamsha. It's with reverse for even Rashis. I mean, it's a new calculation that's in this new Kala version, so I'm not sure which calculation you are using. You're asking if the ascendant is conjunct ninth lord in the ninth house with 10th lord aspecting from the third house. Should someone pursue teaching? Well, yes, ninth house, of course, would be teaching.
Is it Rashi aspecting, or?
I'm not sure. Excuse me 1 second. I have a neighbor who is thinking of drilling holes in the wall as we speak. So
Right.
okay, so yes, you have to, I mean, don't just focus on the 10th house. You also have to look at the rashis. You have to look at the navamsha, where is the life purpose, and you have to look at self factors indeed, to be involved with the guru planets, the counselor planets, the teacher planets, which are Venus and Jupiter, and also the ninth, of course. Ninth house is teaching. The third house can also be with teaching as well. So yeah, 10th house involved for sure, definitely. I mean, I have to see the whole chart. It's difficult to judge a profession just by 3 elements in the Samsha chart.
But the assumption is not really pivotal in determining career. It would be definitely the
Yes,
Rashi chart, the Navamsha
and
chart.
Navamsha.
Yeah. And look at the Jaimini, the Atmakaraka, Jaimini factors, and Upapada Pada. This will be will show much more reliable. Yes,
Yes.
for sure.
SB says, "Hello, when will it get good time for love for a Scorpio ascendant Taurus moon? Jupiter for me is composed in the 6th." And they also say, "I got a reading from you some time back and I'm happy it was correct so far." Thank you, SB, for the feedback. Well, a good time for love is any time for any ascendant and any moon, I would say. I would have to see what dasha you are running in your chart, because if you have a Scorpio ascendant and the Taurus moon, that doesn't say a lot for me. I have to see your D9 and D7 to see if your relationship factors are getting activated. So, you know.
Seventh house, Venus.
Yes.
So if like Atmakaraka or self factors connect to Venus, for example, that would be
Yes, in
like
transit.
an indication. You can look at the Lord, the seventh Lord,
Yes, your
connected.
ascendant lord is Mars, so Mars connecting to Venus. I guess they've been squaring for a while, not a very nice transit. So you have to look also at your Atmakaraka, which is the planet with the highest degrees in your chart. See what the planet with the highest degrees is and see if it's influenced by Venus or your 7th lord in transit, whatever that is, or Jupiter, because that's I mean, if you're a man, and if you like women, Venus is the spouse factor for you. If you like men, Jupiter is the spouse factor for you. So you have to see when these planets connect in transit to your self factors. And you have to see if you are in the right dasha, because dasha is the magnetism you create for the things in the world, and transits are just windows of opportunity for those things to manifest, actually.
Yeah.
I would say, okay, I'm gonna take a couple more questions and then I'm gonna end this. So thank you. I mean, there's a lot of questions being asked, so I'm glad you are also interested in astrology. How do we interpret multiple planets in a single sign, like Venus, Sun, Mercury, Mars in Scorpio in the 7th house? Well,
Yes, that's a bunch. That's a
it's,
stack of planets.
yes.
Yeah, well,
Well,
it's sure, you
Well,
go.
it's never easy. It's never easy to have a lot of planets in one sign. Like you say, like Venus, Sun, Mercury, Mars. It's 4 planets. There is this yoga that says that 4 planets are only auspicious in the 1st, 9th, and 10th. In the 7th, there's this busyness in the sign of Scorpio. So the sign of Scorpio is very emphasized in the 7th house, like partnerships bring a lot of opportunity for this person to fight their inner battles, but that's not very comfortable, I guess, with Sun and Mars there. I guess it can get very fiery.
Yeah,
Venus is also there, so it's a bit soothing, but it's not an easy combination.
Well, the thing is that you have to compare it with people. Planets, you have to compare them with people, and you imagine that you have 4 people in a small
Yeah.
house living together. That's a bit how you look at it. So it's actually a spiritual it can be a spiritual combination. People who kind of are renunciates, or spiritual
Scorpio is
inclinations.
the Brahmin sign, so also tamasic. So through suffering, they connect to something greater or larger.
But in that specific configuration, the sun would be important because the sun is such a bright planet. So it could also kind of destroy or hamper with that potential, especially when the sun is there. If you have 4 planetary conjunction or more and the sun is not there, it can create a very spiritual individual. If since considering other factors, we're just really using snapshot ideas here, but things will point in that direction. But the sun can be difficult in a 4 or 5 planetary conjunction because it's so bright, so hot, and all these other planets. It depends on how your sun is situated, how strong the sun is, and other factors as well, some Gemini spiritual indications. But 3 or more, well, 4 or more planets in one sign, it will be difficult for these planets to express themselves healthily, and would be resulting more often than not in a person withdrawing from a certain part of society, we could say, or certain desires become are burned more easily, I would say. In that sense, spiritual, but it's also a difficult combination, of course. Anything spiritual is always difficult, yes, initially.
Yes. So Eniola asks, in your practice, do you always rectify your clients to the second before using the higher Vargas, the client's charts?
Can you repeat it? Sorry.
In your practice, do you always rectify your client's charts to the second before using the higher Vargas?
To the second? I don't understand that.
Yes. I mean, if you rectify the chart to show like the exact second.
Oh, to the exact second? Yeah.
Yes.
It happens that if people give more than, let's say at least 20 events, and you have your way with it, then you can go really into seconds, and it can work, but with rectification, it's something that is also, it depends on the moment. I've done rectifications that go like super smooth, other rectifications that are so hard, and I'm using the same techniques. So I always come to a certain point. You can do it within seconds, but it's not always as clear, you see, because these things are also, it's also connected to, it's not always the same thing, and each rectification is completely different. You apply the same techniques, but sometimes you have a flow with it, and it's also connected to the person's path, I would say, sometimes not. But well, you have to look at transits and predicting something with trigger transits, and then if it's within 2 days, then your rectification is working. If it's not, then it's off, and that I would say. But it could happen, but it's definitely not all the time. Personally, I don't really feel it.
Yes, I also have to say that I don't rectify the chart to the second, because usually the events that I get asked about can be seen from other sources than the highest Vargas. Like I just look at the D60 more at the signs, and if the person has their birth dates from their birth certificate, and especially if they're in a small town, so the degrees of the latitude and longitude are the same, then I'm more confident to look there. But otherwise, I don't really get really obsessed with finding the time to the second.
No, but especially when they give like a lot of events, like more than 30
Yes.
events, 35 events, then the individual has put a lot of effort into finding these events,
And
and
they
then
deserve a good
somehow,
rectification.
yes, it works like that you go into it deeper, Some people that give 10 events, it's so difficult to rectify even to within 3 minutes. You know, you just do your best, but it's just not enough. You know, you need at least 20, 25, 30, even more events to rectify, and then it will take a long time, and then you can, you know, you can hit 40 those seconds as well, for sure.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna take the last question. Andrea Roberts says, would you look at similar factors to indicate someone being a singer or a public speaker? Would you look for the sun being involved? And for a singer, you would look for rhythm, musical influences. Well, I actually wrote a study about 375 musicians charts where I applied the Gemini principles. Gemini says the sun is the singer. So I found out in that study that, you know, in 80% of the cases it works. So sun has to be connected to self factors, it has to be connected to the second cusp of voice, and it has to be connected to the moon, which is music and rhythm. So, and definitely the sun also makes one a public speaker, especially if it has charismatic planets like Mercury joining it, because you know the sun is a kshatriya planet. In a band, you know, the singer is kind of the leader of the band, and the public speaker is also like a leader, like somebody who takes everyone's attention. So they have to have these solar qualities of, you know, grabbing the person's attention. So I would say definitely the sun has to be involved in public speaking.
Definitely.
Yes, so I guess we're going to wrap this up now. Thank you guys for joining us and for asking so many interesting questions. I personally like to be like challenged and be kept on my toes by, you know, receiving these impromptu questions. Thank you, Levi, for joining us. Yes, that's the neighbor with his drill.
Yeah.
And make sure, if you're interested in the book that we co-wrote about astrology explained, where we describe the signs, the planets, the aspects, the houses, and we get a holistic understanding of them, just I'm gonna link it below. You can pre-order it and you'll get it next week as a digital copy. And I'm gonna make more videos soon. Check out Levi's website, levicosijn.com, my website, yourstars.align.com. So thanks again, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.